Hey Zorgal, I can hear you, or I can see you at least. Let me see if I can get my, oh, I need to get so many things up. But let me get my PowerPoints up, because, well, we're not doing the exact recording just yet. We are gonna probably be talking about some of the stuff. So let's get that up. We can put that in the background so we at least have chat going and you guys can see what I'm doing. And yeah, it's probably good enough for now. I think I can pop my little streaming on here. All right. So Zorgal's here. Some of the other guys are here. I haven't been live in a while. I did talk to you guys on Saturday, though, for people that hung out and did the group. The wife did just cut my hair, so that's kind of nice. Got that nice and tidied up, although I do need to shave. That would probably be a good thing. But Lewis Codes, how's it going? We are just kind of hanging out. I'm going to be talking today about some compliance frameworks that I'm going to be helping some friends do some consulting with. We're going to do a thing. We'll put together a thing called a POAM, which is typically like planned objectives and milestones, I think is typically what we call it. POAM, POAM, not poem like. It's actually funny. Poem is the way that the comedian Nate Bargatze says it, or Bargatze, however you want to say his name. He calls it a poem. Yeah, but it's POAM for us, which is a plan of action and milestones. And I'm going to put one of those together for a company that I'm helping out get to their SOC 2 compliance. That is not their area of specialty. They do. Actually, they're an economics company that one of my buddies works for. Actually, two of my buddies work for him now, but one of my buddies kind of helped him start it. So, yeah, POAM. Yep, that's exactly right. So we'll do a little bit of that. I have to finish up. I'll probably clean up the last of this documentation for the automation course, and then I think I'm just going to build the lab directly in Killer Coda. So I got a little bit of stuff to do today. I'm still kind of waking up because I had like a really late lunch and then I took a nap, and then the wife came home and she's like, I was calling you, and I even called when I got home and nobody answered, and I was just upstairs asleep, so I was passed out. So I'm like still trying to wake myself up right now, even after a haircut and a shower. I'm like beat. So that's what we're doing. No video gaming tonight. Can't play any video games. We gotta do this stuff. So let's check. We always do just a little check around the lab, make sure everything is as we expect. I actually did kind of expect that the environment looked like this because I can always tell here if anybody's using the environment, because these will be taken away if people are using them. It looks like there may be one person through to Hammer 1, but other than that, all the nodes in the cluster are open. I might be even logged in. I'd probably be logged into Hammer 1 somewhere. That's probably what it is, but no, I guess not. Okay, so let's think about what we want to do here first. Let's figure it out. Let's do. Well, I guess we could start it like this. We actually don't even need that up. Let's just do this. We'll go Excel. Pull up an Excel doc. And we'll do blank workbook to start. And I do look at my Excel in dark mode typically, but I don't darken the cells. We could invert the cells if we needed to, but it'll be fine. It'll be fine for this. Then maybe I do something like file, save as. And let's see, what does it want to save this as? Let's see. Let's call this 27001 POAM. Start. That'd be fine. All right. We'll just call it that for now. We don't have to put the name of a company or anything on there. I'll be giving this to them and letting them keep control of it anyways. So I'm just going to be the one that starts it off. So don't worry, I'm not going to do it all from memory. I do have some notes that I'm going to probably pull up and look at for how I'm doing my POAM, but we'll start that here in a second. What else? yeah, we'll work on this and clean up the environment and see where we get to. That should be good. Oh, and then right before I started this stream, this was annoying. I closed out all my windows on accident, so I had all my windows over here that we kind of normally keep track of, and I messed those all up like right as we started. So I might open some of these up again as well. So like the LAC, which is our Linux admin course, I'll pull that up just so we have that. Probably our PSC, which is the other syllabus for the engineering course, which this one's running again. And then the PCA, is that what they called it? They call it PCAE, which is this other one. And where do they have this? Is this the actual, that's the actual course as it's defined for right now. And we're working on the docs. I need to get the docs over to the guys, actually. I've been a little behind on that, so I'll work on that here a little bit tonight as well. All right. Man, I am in like hard brain fog right now. I'm like trying to wake up still and focus a little. That's what I get for taking a late afternoon nap. But the wife is going to, I've forgotten where she's going. She's doing something. So I'll let her do that. Turn my phone on in case she calls me for anything. All right. Let's try to get some headway on something. Let's see if I can't. I think I have these mostly done, but let's make sure that I have these completed so I can turn them into their last little pieces, and actually give them to the guys officially. So here's our automation worksheet 1. This was from Saturday. Let's see if everything's there. We've got the discussion question 1 and discussion question 2. We've got the terminologies. We've got the links and things that I want them to read about a little bit. Get rid of that one. Terms and useful tools if we had any. And then our lab. Got to put the lab together still. Digging deeper and questions. All right, so I'm going to save this. And I'm going to do file save as and make a little PDF out of it. Which you guys have never seen is really just that easy. Just turn it into a PDF. Typically, you got to pick where it's going to go. But in this case, it's going to just go in the same folder. So that one's fine. And then let's get this other doc out of the way, which I think is also pretty much, oh no, the lab automation book's not done yet. Hold on, I gotta work on that one. Let's go look at our lab keys. So if anybody wants to participate in our courses or the labs, they are all free, but you do have to kind of follow along these basic rules. So here's the Linux Automation Guide Lab. Acceptable use policy, access to lab, public keys, lab best practices, those are all documented. Let's update this just to make sure. There we go. And where's that? Hold on. Should be all right here. Update fields. Update entire table. Make sure those are all on the right page. Good. And then we've got our acceptable use policy. That's what you're presented with as you join the environment. And I probably want to turn that into the same font as it'll actually be in the, because that's the font you'll actually see in the environment. So there you go, boom. Willful violations of this acceptable use policy or intentional destruction will result in removal from Prolog. That is true. If you fuck around in the lab, there's times when you're allowed to fuck around in the lab. There's actually, it's documented. You are allowed to do things on the weekend in the lab. But during the week, it's for actual coursework. And that's actually all defined in there and all that stuff. Shows you how you bastion into the nodes. It shows you how to get in, right? Boom. Prolog at prolog.asuscom.com. Server mapping for the target nodes for people that are doing the target work and the automation stuff. And then the extra capacity inside of Killer Coda. Public keys can be added to the server. That's here. So if you go to our server and you drop down to Prolog lab environment, you can drop your public keys in here. And I will put them in, and then you will be able to log in without a password. And that's worked for many tens of people, so we know that that process works. We can do the newer ECDSA keys, which are the elliptical curve DSA, and the older RSA keys. We can take any of those in and use those. And then lab best practices, just reboot the servers when you're done. Obviously, nothing's going to happen if you don't. It's just a better practice because then everybody always gets a clean one. Good. Okay. Okay, good. Yep. So this one, I'm going to call this good. I'm going to stop noodling around on this one. This one's good enough for now. And we're going to go File. We're going to save this as and make this a PDF as well so that I can release that over. Reason you save things as PDF, guys, typically, is it strips off all the metadata that comes with Word docs. Word docs just have too much of like who was the author and who's touched it and all that stuff within an organization. It's a really bad practice to release docs unless you're giving it to a trusted third party or somebody who has like an agreement with you and they are gonna edit it as well or something like that. It's not a good idea to give Word docs out, so we typically don't around here. We'll save this one as well. We also saved it as the other thing. Okay. And then now we've got the lab book. So the lab book is the things that I'm going to want you guys to do in the labs. And I need to also add all the rest of the labs. So this thing can pop over here. And I can start making all the rest of the labs, which are just going to be named pretty much for each of these all the way down. Did I spell systems wrong? Let's go unit 6. And that's automating. We're going to use some other tools in there as well. We'll do 7. Actually, we're going to clean this up here. Grab that. And 7 will be automating. Oh. We're going to keep learning so one of the things about the course is we're going to keep adding in more and more. I don't know what to call it, I guess, except like the wisdom of doing this stuff, like when we do it and how we do it and where we do it. And then the labs are going to be focused on the actually getting your hands on and getting, experience in those things. And then when you get all done with the course, you get all 16 weeks done and you look back and you're like, all right, I know a bunch of these things. And Scott has told me a bunch of these other things about doing it for the enterprise. Now I have to decide how I want to do that, because it's one of these things where it would be like if I taught you how to paint and then you were like, well, now what do I paint? And I'm like, well, isn't that the $1 million question, right? Like, what are you going to do with it? I'll give you all the best things I can think of. I mean, I'll try to be Bob Ross as best I can, but obviously there's only one Bob Ross, right? So if you guys know who that is. If you don't know who that is, go look him up. He's fun. Man, I'm not awake. 9. 9 is going to be build and deploy Linux systems. And there's going to be a few different ways we're going to look at that in the course. 10 is going to be harden Linux systems. Oh, how disrespectful. You always capitalize Linux, right? Yeah, but if you guys got questions or you want to ask me stuff, let me know. Otherwise, I'm just kind of madmaning it up over here. Some of you guys know I just work like a madman sometimes. Update and patch systems. 12. It's gonna be. I'm gonna have to build something for that to work. I'm gonna have to find an environment that functions like a Cisco device. All right, that shouldn't be too much of a problem. All right, 13, 14, and 14 will be CI, CD, and then 15 and 16 will be a little easier because they're going to be exactly the troubleshooting. grab that. All right, there we go. Now, I don't know why. Oh, there they are. Okay. One of the nice things about this is if you ever do this, then you come up here. If you guys have never seen one of these, you can update all fields. Boom, it'll grab them all. There's our nice little table of contents for this. Right, so there's our automation book. Here's our table of contents. There we go. Table of contents right there, right at the top. Our TOC, right? TOC. And then now I can just go add each one of those down, and then as I pump it out, it'll be good. Keyboard bullshit, you said, I'm embarrassed to admit I followed 95% of Sunday's security admin course, but the remaining 5% connecting to the lab server slipped my grasp. Okay, yeah, so that's not a big deal. So keyboard, all you have to do to get in the lab in general is if you come to the Prolog lab environment, right? And I have it pinned. That the way you log in is you just go to prolog@prologasuscom.com. That's the username at, and then the local system, and that's a dynamic DNS, so it'll always hit our system no matter where you're at, unless you're one of these guys mucking around in some IPv6 space and it's not properly giving you DHCP or DNS connections back, that kind of stuff. Then all you have to do is I can give passwords. However, passwords change in our lab environment. All kinds of reasons can change that password. So what's better, and what most people do, is you'll see they drop their public key in here. Public keys are not, you can share your public keys far and wide. You just drop your public key in here. You do not have to tell me anything more than what the key is. Like, I don't have to tie it back to your name or anything. When you come in with your private key, it's going to authenticate you, right? I go drop your public key, and if you do like an elliptical curve, one of these ED type keys or the ECDSA keys, they're shorter, and you can use these keys to connect, and our system will accept that connection. When you drop into our system, you get something like this. Let me show you guys this. That is wrong. That is from the security course. What happens? I clicked on the wrong thing here. What happens when you connect? So this is bang SSH here. Go to Prolog. You will get dropped into an environment that looks like that. Let me get my notepad that has. I have to use the password because I haven't keyed myself. And then you'll get dropped into an environment that looks like this. And it says, you are entering the Prolog lab environment. All activities will be monitored. By entering, you agree to use the lab for the stated purpose of learning Linux. Write your selection below. Now you have 10 seconds to either go to, see, I'm already timed out and kicked out, admin course, security engineering course, or automation course. So I'm going to go in again, connect, and I'm going to go to, let's say, the automation course, and it'll send me to the next server that's open. So if I was doing the auto course, I would go to auto 1. If I did security engineering, so when I exit, it's going to zipper me all the way back out. I'm going to go in again. I'm going to say 2 because you were asking about the Hammer server. Whoops. So do I not have the password? Hold on. I don't want to jack myself up out of here. There we go. All right, so 2, and I'll go into one of the Hammer servers. You know, I can do whatever security engineering stuff that I want to do in there. If you were like, well, what do I do? Where are the labs at? Then that's all over here, right? The labs are all online. They're all free. They're over here. Here's the security engineering course. And you would come here for like Unit 1. And here's the lab for Unit 1. You would just go to a Hammer server like this, and you would say mount grep-i no exec. And you would go, okay, those are the file systems in my environment that have no exec on them. Well, maybe I don't know what no exec is yet, but maybe I can go look in, and we learned about this a little bit. You guys saw me do it. We come over here, we go to, is this my MariaDB? Yeah, this is my MariaDB checklist, but maybe I go to my Red Hat checklist here, and then inside my Red Hat one, I do like no exec, and now I'm looking at only the no exec type config. So anything in here that's going to be one of my types of controls or one of the things that I would do to protect a Linux server, there's 30 of them that deal with no exec in some way. No exec is very important in a file system. Sometimes I do not want stuff on that file system to be executable via the kernel. I don't want it to happen. Inside of a shell, inside like anything, nothing out of there can be executed. And we can set that, and we can enforce those permissions with technical controls and different types of control, like a technical preventative control to keep that from happening. And then we can look at how that's set, and we can look at how that gets built into a system once we understand that it's there. So yeah, hopefully that makes a little bit of sense to what we're doing, right? And then we would just go through, you would do the whole lab, here's the SIG stuff, and then you would get in and you would start doing that MariaDB stuff that we do, which is install MariaDB, go in there, start mucking around with it. You're answering questions like, what is the problem? You're reading about the STIG standards, which you have to get familiar with if you want to build secured systems for, well, anybody that wants to adhere to STIG standards, which are a well-known published government standard with, I don't want to call this a cool or even a great tool, but it's an effective tool in that I could take this, when I'm done with this checklist of my MariaDB, I can send you that .ckl file. And then I could send you that server in whatever format we had agreed, like VMDK or ISO or whatever, and I can send that server over to you. You can import it to your environment, and you can validate the controls against it. And that becomes super useful for how we deploy stuff as engineers, right? So anyways, that's all. That's and a big part of that security engineering course, the guys that did it will tell you this, it's about aligning. One, it's about learning the job. But two, it's like learning how the tools are used in the job, because you are going to, as any type of engineer nowadays, we don't live in a hole anymore. Like, I used to just sit in a server room and nobody knew what I did, and as long as the spells were all being cast and as long as the servers were up, they didn't care or know or understand what I did. That's how I started my career. But now you have to interact, and like people have to know, and you have to report up and there's all this stuff now. And that's kind of like this course is everything about it. So yeah, hopefully that you said it answered for you, but I'm hoping that gives you like a good understanding, and anybody that wanted to know, hey, should I take the security engineering course? Should I do that stuff? This is what it is. This is what we do over there, right? We're not, I tell you guys all the time, we don't do anything that's like, I don't want to say super complex, but it's like the things we do are pretty simple. We just have to get good at doing the basics of them. And for some of you, if you've never seen it before, it's just a new thing. So that's cool. And Bushido, thanks for the Prime. Yeah, I tell people you guys can use those anywhere. I appreciate when you use it here. And you don't have to watch ads for a month. So that's cool. So, got all that stuff. Table of contents built out over here in my lab environment. Yep. Built my table of contents. So this is what the 16-week course is going to look like for the automation lab book. Now, what I then have to do is come down for each of the labs, and I'm going to basically do this. Yeah, so it's going to be like this for each of the labs. And here's our required materials. I put this on whatever lab server you're using, whatever PuTTY or connection tool. I tell you guys all the time, you're never going to hear from me, you must use this type of tool. I'm never going to force you to use PuTTY. I'm not going to force you to use some type of Moab or Hyperterm, or I don't care what terminal you use to get to Linux like this. It's never mattered to me. It never will matter to me. So I want you guys to kind of focus on this. It's weird. What's going on over here? It says I'm entering a hype train, which everybody that knows that those are all scams. But that's kind of funny. So we have this. Let me pull up. Yeah, I'm never gonna tell you guys. And I use Screen, but honestly, I need to modernize myself one of these days and go to Tmux, and then you guys will just see me bouncing around in Tmux, and it doesn't really matter to me like how I get into a device. Now, it very much matters to me that any environment you put me in, I have a jump box. And I will treat like head nodes as a jump box if you don't give me one. And it's not that big of a deal what is my jump box. But this is my jump box in my home environment, my P01 Jump 01. He's still my jump box. But you guys see me jumped into other servers off of him. And the reason it's super useful, hey King Buns, how's it going? The reason it's super useful to have a jump box is this. I could, like, this would have terrified me like early on in my career to go like this. I just lost all that work I was doing. But not if I had a terminal program where I'm actually, everything I'm doing is over on that jump box. So I could pick I could smash my laptop with a hammer, go hop on my wife's laptop, and connect right back to this terminal and do the same exact thing. It just looks like this. Those are all old connections, right? Just hop right back in. It's my user to that jump box, right? This one's no longer exposed out to the world either. And now I'm coming into the server as a bash process, right? This is just some, right? I can see my bash process, 90,865. Who cares? But I can screen ls and see that I've got a screen session sitting out there. And now I'm going to connect to that screen session, and that screen session is my persistence in the network that goes all the different places. So watch this. I'm going to say screen-r to reconnect. If it was attached for some reason, because sometimes something weird happens to your system and you got to reconnect, but it's like attached, you can't just -R to reconnect. You can use -X to kind of also connect. Either one does the same thing, except X will connect to one that's already connected. So if you had a buddy that was in a screen session and you wanted to jump in with them and watch, you could use screen-X to do that if you wanted to, right? It gets a little funky at the bottom sometimes, but it's not too bad. So I clear the screen up, maybe jump around. And then I can always do Control-D to detach completely, right? Yeah, I should be able to Control-D. Control-Shift-D. And I can jump completely out, right? Clear my screen up. I should not be... Oh, I still am in there. All right. Well, we won't mess with that too much then, but you can jump in and out of your environment. I thought Control-D would detach all my shells, but apparently not. But the reason we do that... I did do that, though. Hold on. I did turn that thing on. I didn't mean to turn that on. So it's valuable to understand your workflow. And, I mean... Screen and any of the persistent type jump box environments have like changed my game, because I could just go home and work from home. I didn't have to always be in the office and that kind of stuff as well. So kind of useful for me, useful for you guys too, I think, when you kind of learn how to do it. But again, to that point, you will never see me like telling you got a 10 key in micro and do all this other stuff so hard and be in Vim and NeoVim and stuff. You're not going to hear me do that, because I'm not going to tell you that I think that's not the thing I think that's going to change stuff for you. It's like I talk about this sometimes with like shooting. You'll see people like watch somebody run a CQB course, and they'll be like, man, those gloves you're wearing are this and that. And it's like, the gloves are less than 2% of it, guys. The 98% over here that most people need to focus on, or as we sometimes say, like, the thing that matters is the thing that's going to affect your ability the most is not the thing that you think. And you get that a lot in, like, I think in Linux circles for sure. People think like, oh, that's the thing that's going to do it for me. It's like, that's not the thing that's going to do it. It's knowing these basics that's going to do it for you. It's not if you've got like 10 more NeoVim bindings that make you do one thing half a second faster so you look cooler when you're talking to like the Primagean or something. Yeah, I haven't thought of that name in a while. Jeez, that guy. Anyways, so that's neither here nor there, but I'm a big fan of the fundamentals. So, all right, where were we at? So I was just showing you guys, you can jump around in your environments. You can do whatever you want. Let's get back to a couple of things that we were really trying to make work here, which is we're gonna finish up cleaning up this lab book, and then the other one that I had, where's this other? Oh, that's my college stuff. I was like, wait a minute, why is this other thing highlighted in dark mode? Yeah, you guys don't need to worry about that. That's my book, or that's my my college stuff. Let's come over here. Labs designed to have an engineer verify and execute their automated tools. Okay, that's true. Bash execution. So we were executing simple things in Bash for the purpose of the course. So let's get rid of these. And that's good. This was, so it was Bash, it was Python, and it was Ansible. Those were the three things that we executed during the, that was weird. that weird to anybody else? That's kind of weird looking. Do not know why that's doing that. That's sometimes kind of annoying when... that's fine. That's fine. There we go. Screw it. That looks good enough. Let's restart this numbering over because these are not tied to each other. There we go. Restart at 1. All right. And bash executions are going to be the commands that we're running inside of bash. So let's move this over here. And I don't even remember which ones we did. So let's just look at what I actually did when we were doing the course, which I think was on, it was on this one. Yeah, what did we do? So made sure that we're in bash, right? And then some just like the simplest of things that we could do with a node, right? You're going to be on the auto servers when you do this. So I might do, so execute some simple commands within your bash shell. And, right, to check your, so we're going to check our shell. We'll echo $$ shell, which will show us the version of the shell that we're in. And then we'll do some simple automations where if we were in 5, auto 5, right, then we could do something simple like this. We could say for server in, and we could use a list, target 1-1 and target 1-2. So for server in that list, which there's 3 ways we can read in lists that we're going to look at in general from like especially from bash, but other programming languages you can do it different ways. But you can just give the system the list, but this is obviously very unwieldy if I'm going to do more than like 2 servers, right? I can generate a list if I knew like some value and was going to loop over a value, like it's all the targets between 1 and 100. We could loop over 1 to 100 pretty quick. Or if we have a list that somebody has given us, like, hey, check these 10 servers, I grab that, I throw it in a file, I read the file, and then I get the list from that. So those are the 3 major ways that I do this type of reading. So I might say do SSH to $server, and then maybe like uptime, right? And then done. And this will loop over. However, we're going to have a problem here. We actually have a password that needs to be given for this. So let's say timeout 3. And let's see if we can just connect. And it says, oh, I need a password. I need a password. So it's timing out after 3 seconds. And then it comes back, right? We didn't have a password. Let's talk about a limitation of our system right here. What if I did service Ansible at that, and now I need to know that password. Oh, I ran out of time. And I ran out of time. So I need to up my timeout maybe to maybe like 10. But then this is a major limitation. Watch this. I got in the 1, maybe. I got in the second one. But do you think I want to go down a list of 1,000 servers typing in the password over and over again like that? That's a freaking monstrosity. That sounds terrible. So we might push a key over to those servers. We might do all these different things. But in our initial setup, like of the course, we can do these things one-off, because I want you guys to see that like all the pieces of like what becomes like server automation and like touching 1,000 servers starts with touching 1 or 2 servers. Put it that way to be like overly simple. You might be like, well, that sounds like the journey of 1,000 steps starts with 1. Well, they got it right in that case, because it does, right? Like, and I tell you guys all the time, like when we do automation stuff and I build these little inventories, if I can do an inventory with 2 systems, yeah, Confucius over here, yeah, but if I can build an inventory with 2 systems and make it right, I should be able to do that with 1,000 servers. And then you might say, well, Scott, now I need an automation just to build my freaking inventories. You kind of do, because it's a hassle to maintain inventories. It is a hassle to maintain inventory, 100%. We build pipelines to generate inventories and pull them out of satellite and stuff like that. And actually, that's one of the things I'm a little sad about here is I don't have satellite to show you guys that. But I know some of the guys in the course still run satellite, so I might be able to get Pico to give us like a snippet of something that I had built for them before when I worked with them. Because I don't keep a lot of my snippets, especially like when I build stuff for companies. I don't keep any of that, right? You might say, you should. Well, I'll build it again when it's time. I don't burden my mind with remembering all that crap. A lot of stuff's made it into our Discord over the years, but not stuff that I do professionally. So, anyways, that's neither here nor there. The point is, we have done basically everything that I would want you to do from Bash, right? Some simple commands. We can loop over a list of your servers, so that would look something like this. We'll do this one here, this one. And we might say verify your shell PID, right? Verify your shell program or your shell variable, which is always going to be that in a Linux system. And then maybe loop over your target servers. And then maybe something like this. And then for this, I would say, typically when I do labs, I change this over to, whoops, not that. I change this over to courier new. So then it's Control Y and Control Y. And then now you have it in like a terminal output, so you can kind of see what your stuff might look like. And then for this, I would say use, this would be probably bold underlined. Use your target servers, right? So use your target servers as in the lab. I mean, technically you can keep going to the same one over there, but you want to use your target server for whatever your environment is, and that comes from that lab guide that I was just showing you guys earlier. I think I closed it. Yeah, but the point is, you target, if you're on auto 4, you go to target 4.1 and target 4.2, right? So you hit your targets. Target servers. Let's say enter your password for SVC Ansible from lab guide, right? And you only have 10 seconds because you've set yourself a timeout of 10 seconds. But you might look at that and go, well, that's very like rudimentary, Scott. Like if we just hit a 10-second timeout, like getting to a server or something, we bounce over it. Yeah. And this is the way I used to do it before I heavily did Ansible, before I really got into Ansible. When I would patch servers and stuff like that, I would loop over large lists of servers, and I would manually pull out the busted servers. And then I would pull out the ones, and then what I would do is I would take my list, and as I validated that servers were good, they would be coming out of my list, my actual list that I had of all the servers I had started with, all the way until I was just down to my last problem servers, and I was looping over those and seeing them busted. And then as they were coming up fixed, I would be pulling them out manually. That's the way I used to do server patching back in the day. It's a freaking nightmare. What's better is like we use a tool like Ansible as we get into Ansible, and we have like the scaffolding around the servers that have fallen by the wayside and the servers that didn't make it to the end of the execution, and then why did they fail, and then we're reporting on all those things. So we can build all this stuff up. We just have to do it. All right, anyways, so let's execute that, and that'll work like that. And then Python, we did Python. Python was execute. Or test and execute. Oh, you know what? There was also verify your shell, verify your PID. Your location. So your location and version of bash are like this. So which bash, and then we can say user bin bash, or you don't have to be verbose like that. Version, right? So you've got your which bash, super annoying, and then you've got your Hate when it does that. Super annoying. That's a word thing, which I have tried to get rid of many times, and it still likes to be there. We're gonna change that over to Courier New as well. Courier New, by the way, is my favorite. Like, so if you're, you know, some junior engineer on a team or something, and you ever find yourself working with me, I will tell people, don't let stuff come out of your terminal and then go into your you know, emails and stuff just looking like garbage. Make sure it stays in the same format. And Courier New is really good for keeping that same block. I almost want to say cardinality, but that's not the right term for it. For sure, the right block spacing of your environment. Because, you know, I've shown you guys this before, but if you guys have never seen, where do I have that? I think I can pull it up here. Hold on. It's over here in my Prologue presentations. It's one of my soft engineering things, which I know I need to update this thing as well, but it's in here. Soft engineering skills, right? Some of you guys have seen this before. That's not the point. I'm actually reorganizing this one, but really this right here. Like, don't do this. This is bad engineering. This might as well just have a finger like this pointing at the people that are reading it, because there's no reason to show anybody this. I tell you guys all the time, I've been doing this like almost 25 years, all command line, and like I can't read what that says. And I know what this thing says, and I can't read it. This is much easier. Like, if you're going to show it to somebody the way it came out of the terminal. It's the best advice I can give you. If it comes out of a terminal, format it like it came out of a terminal. And Courier New does that for you. So anyways, so if you're wondering like why I use Courier New, that's why, because then it's formatted correctly and looks nice. This one, these do not need to be in Courier New, because this is just your normal instructions. So this can be back to the Calibri body. Sure. All right. So Python, what were we doing with Python? I really just had you guys drop into Python. I think I did it over here. Maybe I did it up on one of these. Yeah, we did something basically like this. It just couldn't be so easy, could it, to have it work just like that? Anyways, we'll say verify your version of Python. It's gonna bug me. Let's see if we can grab this format. There we go. That looks better. Verify your version of Python, and that's something like Python 3 -- version. That should give you your version of Python. So it looks something like that. All right. Nope. There we go. All right. Python 3. We'll see that. We can go into Python, right? We can actually execute and drop in there. And then now in here, we can do a bunch of things to make sure that this is working the way that we kind of expect. We can make sure that we can do like the simplest thing in all the world, which is like import some. We ended up on OS, import OS. And you compare that with like import NumPy, which I don't have NumPy on the system, and it's going to fail. So you can just, you know, test that you can import modules, because you're going to need those modules to affect the way that Python behaves. And, you know, it's modules in my mind are, I know they're more than like a library, but in my mind they're just like extra tools that get added into the thing that aren't there when you normally call it, right? And you only import the tools that you need, which is like a minimalist thing, and I think pretty much everybody that ships code would agree with that. And then we're going to, so we're going to say Python 3 So this will drop you into an interactive shell. Import OS should work with no output. Import NumPy should not work as you don't have NumPy on the system, right? And we'll go do our same conventions from earlier where we drop Courier new. Now, since I already wrote it, this is a nice thing. I can hit Control Y, boom, and Control Y. Boom, there we go. So now all of my things that I want to change are right there, right? Still fighting Pylint and my imports from type. Okay. Yeah, you only import the stuff you need. 100%. And actually, funny enough, with Ansible, they only recently went to that. It used to be when you would download and run Ansible, you got every module that was built for Ansible and it came with it. And then now you only get the ones that come standard, and then you have to go and use like Galaxy and pull down these additional modules and stuff. So there, it's much more modular. Anyway, so the first lab for this week is like by far the super simplest lab I've ever written, and then like in the future weeks we're really going to start running with it. In fact, I actually kind of felt bad making this one this simple because yeah, people are gonna be like, oh man, like the Ansible, I'm not gonna learn anything in this automation course, but we will do a lot. Plus, we talked when we actually did the talking. I pretty much talked to this for an hour, right? We did all this talking and all this stuff about the things in the course, which I still have to record that for the guys because I record all the courses for them. And then that's super blue, so let me get that out of the way. It's way too bright blue. Let's get this Ansible stuff up there. And then what I'm gonna do as part of this, let's pull that up too. We're gonna say exit 0 or exit, and it'll get us out of there. Now, I've told you guys, like, I don't ship code, right? That's like not what I do. The work that I do is more centered around the artifacts of like built systems and running configs and that kind of stuff. But I can code my way out of a paper bag. So I'm going to show you guys how I interact with Kafka and all these different types of like stuff as we go. But I am not a guy, like you're never going to take the blocks of code that I do and like ship them out as like some app. Like my stuff is like things that work for the purpose they need to and for the kickoffs that they need to, and like as like scripts, typically always procedural top down. My stuff doesn't spin. It does, like that's not the kind of work that I do. But to that end though, I can show you how to make stuff spin and automate. I just don't productionalize code. I don't necessarily, like, I wouldn't say I've really worked on teams where we're all working on the same stuff. That's not the stuff. There's all kinds of guys on our server that can help with that kind of stuff, right? Like King Buns and like these guys that like that's what they do professionally. For me, the automation stuff I'm going to show you is like the sysadmin, the security, the build of server type stuff. The interacting in an environment in some ways, but in a way that in a way that handles and facilitates the servers, right? I'm not writing code. I'm not doing that kind of stuff. I'm writing code, but I'm not a software engineer pushing, production code, that kind of stuff, if you will. My stuff runs in production. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that's not the workflow that I do. Like you wouldn't watch me for software engineering stuff. That's not like what I do. Like I'm never down on the software and game dev channel, which is, I don't know, a silly thing to me anyways, but the just the name of that. All right, let's restart this numbering over. And then go here. We'll grab this. And Ansible's going to be the same way. Test and execute Python. What do I call up here? Yeah. Test and execute Python. Test and execute Ansible. And verify your version of Ansible. Did I do Python up there lowercase? Jeez. Have some respect. So verifying Ansible will look like this. Ansible version, right? So we'll go here. Ansible -- version. We actually don't want to do that just yet. And then we'll say we can, so there's a lot of other things that we can do, but maybe check modules, and that might be like Ansible doc, right, -L, right, Ansible doc -L will show us all the modules. Actually, that's a good one too. You might do Ansible, verify your version of Ansible, check other Ansible tools, and that is Ansible and if you guys haven't ever seen that convention, something like this we will tend to do query new, right, and it'll give us all the modules. There's a lot of them, a whole lot of them nowadays. Right, word count -L to see how many modules are there, but they've got these longer names now. Oh yeah, 7736, just getting to be so many. Right, just check modules. Maybe even you search for one. Grab -I, copy. Maybe like I want to see all the copy modules that are gonna exist in this. Here's all the things that have to do with copy. Right? That's a good one. Good one just to kind of see, right? Get familiar a little bit with kind of what's going on. And then I think most everybody here could look at that and go, okay, well, so I could search for copy. I could search for anything. I would just switch the word right there, right? So there's that. Am I missing something? Johnny Man, how's it going? Hopefully this stuff's useful to you. Daft Duck, FY, bottom terminal output was mixed with the chat overlay. Is it? Is it? Yeah, sometimes I turn that chat overlay off. Let me move that down real quick. Hold on. I don't always have that. Yeah, that's good. That's a good catch. I don't always have that on there, especially when I'm working on other stuff. I can move that up. Yeah, that's a good catch though. I'll move that down. I don't always, like in other terminals, like I get rid of that sometimes too. Unless I can put it somewhere where it's like completely, I need to actually just build a little black box. They're not hard to make, like a little black box behind it so that it just always covers it. So, hey Colchis, how's it going? We are putting together the lab book stuff. I've already kind of put the other things down and they're ready to go from like a finished work perspective. And then I need to get them over to the guys in the writers group so that they can start putting that out. But this is what the lab book is kind of looking like now. And then it's automation things and what are you doing. And then what I'm going to do, so test that, all very simple stuff for this first week. As far as like, I literally just want people to be able to get in there, see that the tool's there, and execute it. Some people are going to be like, man, this is like super, super simple. Yes, it is. It's the simplest thing I could do. But then when we get to running, I've told you guys this before, you know, in a class full of 30 college students, if I say, hey, we're going to get into VI tonight, you guys know what I'm going to be doing for the next hour, right? And you say, no, there's no way it's going to be the next hour. I'm telling you right now, for the next hour, I'm going to walk around those 30 college students and help them get out of VI. And you say, no, it's not that bad. That's exactly what I'm going to be doing for the next hour. And it's like the same thing here. I don't want anybody to be like 3 weeks in and be like, how do I execute Ansible? I don't want that, right? I don't want that for them because that's a terrible experience, and I don't want it for me because it's a terrible experience for me too, right? So I try to level set, like, here's all the environments you're going to execute out of. Actually, we should probably write a little Python script. Well, maybe we'll do that too. Maybe I'll do that in the course lab that I'm going to make. So I'm going to make a lab, I think, for each of these in Killer Coda. So then it's just the Unit 1 lab. Go in it. It'll just ask you all these. It'll make you do all these same things. I think that's what I'm going to do for this. One that'll be, well, yeah, we'll do it in the Ansible thing, but it'll be all of these different pieces. So again, all super simple stuff, all things that I think any of you guys can do. The one for that will be control plane and node 01, right? We'll change it over to that. All right. What else do we have? I was in a zone, right? In these, this one's pretty close to done then, as far as that goes. Just the basics. Can you hit the 3 types of system automation tools we're going to use? I tell you guys all the time, don't get bogged down by the tool, right? Like, the concepts we're talking about are probably the most important thing, and then the way that we do it is really, it would be like, you know, if I told you how to go make biscuits or something, and you know how to make biscuits a certain way, but I insist it must be this one way. Well, there's very few reasons why that would be the only way that somebody could do it. So, yeah, cool. Because yeah, the labs are definitely moving along, and I know you guys are going to parse them up and put them into different formats. But I'm trying to make it as organized as possible. But yeah, this lab is designed to have the engineer verify and execute their automation tools in a controlled environment. For people that were, let me think here. Let's see if there's anything. I think I have all the pieces then for this week. Let's go check them all real quick. Let's go up to Linux group, go into the automation course. We'll pull them up in dark mode. It'll be fine. We'll just use the tool that comes with this. So the course syllabus, I've already kind of released to everybody, but this is what that looks like. I have it inverted in dark mode, so that's fine. People can also look at it in dark mode. This is pretty good. This is what we want the course to look like. This is what you should expect if you're doing the course with us. By the way, I should note, for people that want to do the course, it's free. It's just down in the Discord. The only thing that's like a hard, you have to do it to pass the course, is you have to do, like, obviously you got to do the work and turn in labs and stuff all at the end. But I mean, if you told me, hey, I'm not going to do any of that, but I do want to still follow along, you have to come in here and do these course discussions. So there's course discussions. Looks like there's a new one, and I can go in there and read about whatever's going on with, in this case, the first question is, what is security? What is the CIA triad? What is that concept? I have some piece of data in the middle of the room that I want to protect. How is that data going to be protected from people looking at it that shouldn't, people changing it that shouldn't, and having it always available sitting there in the middle of the room, right? If I want to move it from one side of the room to the other, how do I keep people from seeing it? Like, this is what confidentiality, integrity, and availability are. They're not just some abstract concepts. They're actual things that we do as security personnel, right? We're all playing blue team if we're not red, right? We're all playing defense. So looks like he's got some good answers. And then we ask a little bit about authority, will, and force, which are not just concepts for law enforcement. They're not just concepts for a judge and that kind of stuff. They're not, you know, they're not some kind of abstract or theological construct. They are actual things, right? Do you respect somebody's authority, or are you going to do whatever you want regardless of what you read? You know, if a line is on the ground, do you just cross it because you can? Well, you can will to do that. But then now somebody has the choice to either force you to adhere to it or not. And then now that's what authority, will, and force are. It's this idea that, are you going to listen, or are you going to be forced to listen? And that becomes really important in the systems world, right? Understanding what our controls actually are, and where I'm just like, no, 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 versus I stop you. And now you either have to go around that control or break through it, right? Those are your options, right? There's no other thing. Looks like there's more stuff going on down there too. Maybe some changes and stuff. But anyways, these are the things, if you're doing the course, you have to do these, right? People are down there doing stuff. You sit there and you talk with each other, and you see that people absorb things and think about things different than you. And that is, I mean, arguably, like, if you look at, like, the big scheme of things, right? Like, if any of you guys ever remember seeing the movie Good Will Hunting, he's this genius that just goes to the library and he gets, like, a $1.76 in library late fees over the course of his life. But he's as smart or as brilliant as any of these Harvard people. And he's talking about them regurgitating stuff from different checks, but he's brilliant, right? And his argument is, well, anybody could have done it. And, well, maybe that's true, maybe that isn't, but he's definitely, like, a genius in this show. And all the other people are benefiting in a college sense from being around other academics and intellectuals, which is theoretically the point of college, right? Like, getting people together so you can bounce ideas off of each other and see that other people learn things differently, right? All right, anyways, so we got that. So the course textbook, course syllabus outline, 16 weeks, what we're doing, how we get into the system, how we're learning stuff, we're exploring, so we're doing a lot of thinking, we're practicing, we're doing these little things with our hands and typing things and getting better at that, and then we're applying it to the real world once we understand it. That's our explore, plan, apply type, or explore, practice, apply type methodology, class size, these are things. All right, so that's done, right? And then the other day we were also going through our lab book, which is separate but so important. I finalized this, so I think this is good. This is our lab automation guide. So this is useful for connecting, I guess, to any of the labs, but this is actually designed for people doing the automation course. Acceptable use policy. Acceptable use policy. This is that authority will enforce right here. If you're not going to listen to me, I mean, fucking whatever, you know. If you don't want to listen to me, I'm not going to I'm letting people in as root in the environment. They can do literally whatever they want to those servers. They turn them into Bitcoin miners. I'm not going to do a lot of Bitcoin mining, but they could, right? But here's the line that's drawn, right? This is your acceptable use policy. Violating it or intentional destruction, which I always tell you guys, if I'm given root, I'd be like, ugh, why am I going to break this? I was already given it. That's how I feel about that anyways. And then access to lab looks like this. You jump in, you go to one of the servers, lab capacity. Here's the mapping if you're using the target nodes. And if you're using the additional capacity out in Killer Coda, you're just using a root, so you don't have to push the key. You're just using a root with a keyed environment. I purposely have you guys using an account with no key so that you can push keys if you want to. And I think that that's valuable. Yeah, Robodump. Yeah, crypto mining is very, very much possible. Public keys, you drop them in the Prolog lab environment channel. We were talking about this earlier. I think somebody might have even dropped a key while we were sitting here. You can drop keys in there. Yep. And then I will grab that key like this. Boom. I'll go drop it in the environment. I'm eventually going to automate this. I just haven't gotten around to it because I'm kind of lazy. Where's that guy? I think it's here. Yeah, here. I should be here. Oh, drop that in. There we go. And then bang, copy. So we'll copy. It's for the other part of the key, but this is really the only place that's needed is that one right there. And then lab best practices. When you're done with servers, reboot them so it's just clean for the next person. Right. And that's both your target servers that you're hitting, clean those guys up, and then also reboot the auto node that you're in as well, right? So let's reboot your servers, and that's that part of the lab. All right, so then the last thing I had done or was working on was getting this one done. So this one is also going to be, we're going to save this, and then we're going to file save as. Turn this into a PDF. This PDF is going to keep getting overwritten the entirety of the course as I keep adding more and more to it. So here's the lab book, and it'll look like this. And there's all the pieces of it there. All right, so that's basically lab 1, right? But to that end then, what I also want to do is I am going to go here, and inside of our Ansible labs, even though it's not going to be strictly an Ansible course, right? It's going to be Bash and also Python. I'll probably still put them up here in the Ansible. Let me see. Let's make sure there's nowhere else I need them. We got Ansible, HashiCorp, Kubernetes, Linux. We'll put them in the Ansible labs because I still think that's logically where they go. But I'll probably just drop it down here as like a, probably do like a 201 through 212. and those will be the names of the labs. And then we'll put at the beginning, this ties back to this lab. It'll be the lab book, and it'll say it's a standalone lab. Anybody can do it. However, it also makes more sense in the context of the free course. So then, I've done that before on some of these. Some of these it says like, hey, this makes more sense in the context of this other thing. I'll show you an example in our Linux labs one. No, actually, best one's probably Kubernetes. Here in the three-tier app, it says right here at the beginning, it's like, hey, you could do this, but this is part of a larger presentation, and if you go and look it up and do it, you'll get more out of this, because this is a fully closed-in three-tier application deploy inside of Kubernetes and securing it, but it makes more sense if you go look at it in the context of that, because there's images and there's stuff that we explained and stuff that we walked through. But could you just do this lab? Absolutely, right? All right, I'm jumping around a lot, but I'll build that here in a little bit. That's good. That doesn't look right because it's reverse color, but yeah. And then I'm going to start the Lab 2 stuff this week so that I'm ready for it before we actually meet on Saturday next week. That's the goal. All right. Public keys are fine. It doesn't matter. I'm all done with this stuff, so I might just reboot this system. And Auto 5 will then rebuild himself in the environment and come back up. So here's what we're going to do real quick. Oh, by the way, you guys see my Linux is the way shirt? My wife told me I have to start wearing these on the stream more because these are our little swag stuff. Let me go here real quick. Let's go with a quick break. Hourglass. Try to get up and walk around every now and then, but we'll go quick break, and then more security stuff. 8 minutes. All right. Stretch your legs out, walk around, come back. Let me fix that a little bit. I can make that a little smaller. There we go. All right. I'll be back. Stretch your legs, smoke them if you got them. Let me get some more water. All right. Well, I'm much more close to my actual time here. Normally when I go, I come back and I still have like 5 minutes of break left, but I wandered away for a little bit. Put my camera back on here. Get rid of this thing. All right. So I got to figure out, I got to organize my thoughts around, get my steps in a little bit. I need to put together my let me type up, get some water real quick. Hold on. I need to grab some of this. So let's go with where are we at here? Over here. This is a thing that I put together earlier, and I'm putting together what's called a poem. So that's what something objectives and milestones, right? I always forget what it is, but it's basically our individual things that we need to do. So what I need to do here then is put down, let's say, man, it's always hard to start from a blank page. Let's say task here, and then we're going to do our RACI, right? And then we're going to do scheduled completion, actual, and then we're going to go scheduled completion, actual completion, and we can say steps, and then let's get that at least here first. RACI is responsible. If you guys have never seen this. So RAC is a type of chart that people will use, and it tends to be, it's responsible first, right? And then it's accountable, consulted, and informed. So if I go right here. Boom. I shouldn't have shortened these all out before I did this. Accountable. Oh, it would help if I spelled accountable right. And then for C is consulted. And then informed, right? And this will be whoever needs to be involved with each of those. Tasks tend to be much longer and more descriptive, and then each of these other things, or steps or remediation plan will be if anything needs to be completed, then one of these. And then maybe we find that, you know, these need to be, these all need to be a little bigger, right? Boom, there we go. Because they tend to be things that end up populating a little more space. Oh, and I could invert these colors, but it's not that bad. And so then our tasks within our space that we need. Get rid of all this over here. Our tasks are going to be centered around like what SOC compliance is. So at some point in there, and it's going to be much later, we're going to engage third-party validation, right? And then this will be, you know, vendor, you know, whatever our compliance vendor is. Scheduled completion for this team might be we need to engage, if I could spell correctly. engage third party, and scheduled completion for that might be, I don't know, we might hope for 30 Jan of 2026, right? So this team wants to be fully SOC compliant by this time next year. So in under a year, we're going to try to get them SOC and ISO 27001, right? So our tasks then have to revolve around getting to our SOC 2 compliance. So so typically for SOC, you're going to have your there's these 5 areas that you tend to have to like have these security controls around. So we'll look at that if I'm going to actually use that. I'm actually looking at frameworks here. So there are frameworks that come directly from NIST, but they're not exactly on these. And let's see if yeah. So we'll talk about we need to engage a training plan. I know that for sure. Responsible for that may be me, possibly. And my completion to have a training plan for the users maybe by, what is this, 9/22, so October, November. So let's say maybe 30 November 2025, right? And we can play with these, how these dates are going to format and that kind of stuff. We need to have our defined 800-53. Yeah. So 853 is the risk management framework, isn't it? Or it's the where's that 145? But 53 is the one that has to be implemented for all government systems, right? 800-53. Yeah. These guys, the guys that I'm doing this for, it's a friend's company, and they're adhering to these because the ISO 27001 is an international standard, and they do a lot of work in Europe. They're a economics company that deals with implications and decisions around different types of energy usage and stuff like that. So they do work around these different places, and we're going to start getting them set up to be compliant in this. Now, they're already doing a lot of these things, and I was telling them it makes it easy that they're a cloud company, because then a lot of the initial assertions come directly from the cloud. So like if you're, let's say for example, let's say they were using AWS. In fact, I'm specifically saying that because they're not using AWS, but I'm an AWS guy, so AWS SOC 2 compliance is kind of straightforward as far as, now they're saying it like that, but it's kind of straightforward in that if you're just asserting things being compliant at like the lowest level, you can just get that from AWS Artifact, right? How to be SOC 2 compliant, and at some levels it's just going and pulling that stuff, but then your implementations on top of that have to follow all of your documented procedures and stuff like that. So this company is probably starting from base. Actually, I know they are. But this is somebody's example of what you might do. And then how are you doing security, availability, processing integrity, and confidentiality, and then privacy, right? But these are very high level mappings, right? So one of the things I'm going to add over here as we look at this, because these are the areas that we will do. So we will say policy for, so we're going to break this out, even if some of these things don't seem like they need to be broken out. Policy for security, policy, it's really policies for availability, right? And then policies for processing integrity. We're going to copy this, make a new insert, and then we're going to say policies for confidentiality. And then insert policies for privacy, right? And then we're going to over here in our steps or remediation plan, we'll talk about the individual things, because then within each of these, it's so policies are always high, like overarching ways that we plan on, like, it's almost like high-minded platitudes. Like, the company will enforce security standards for people, and you're like, oh, that's fucking wonderful. I'm a systems engineer. I build the systems. Like, what does that mean to me? And it will be like the procedures by which people log in and interact with my systems. And those procedures need to be written and adhered to as part of the system as well, right? Yeah, it's a big deal. It's more than much technology. It's the policies and procedures, and that's what and then the practices are making sure your people are doing them by training them. So, like, in our training plan, it's going to be, how often do we train users? Oh, I need to. I don't use Excel very often, so it's like kind of a hassle when I do use Excel and then I have to do whatever. Here, I can switch this, by the way, for people if you need. Just go to format. Where's that? Do it here. We could just go back black and then Control A and change all the lettering to white. There you go. So if people need it reversed, right? Because people hate the glare on the screen, right? But they are right. There's no very specific SOC compliance type things there. So task policies, policies. And then I need to look at the calendar invite too and make sure I have that. And then another one that I might add, this will be focused on right, so this will be SOC 2, and then I'll come down here and I'll say ISO 27001, because I haven't looked at that standard before, so I'm not sure exactly what that one's going to kind of look like, right? And then this one, and I need to figure out how to do. I know there's a way to collapse them and stuff like that, but I don't do enough Excel to know kind of what that's going to look like. But responsible for this will be, Scott. For me, for some of them, I'll be writing some of them. Some of the other guys will be doing them. And then when's our scheduled completion for these different pieces, and then which individual ones of them are there over here. So for like privacy, actually probably for general security will be user so system AUP, right, which is acceptable use policy. Right, so we have to have a system acceptable use policy deployed, right, because that needs to be there. If you're not going to have that, then how are your users going to know what they can do? I need to change these. Yeah, we'll change it later. Policies for availability. Okay. We'll look at each of these. Okay. So yeah, I'm just messing around here, but this is me kind of getting ready for this meeting I have tomorrow with my friend's company, and I'm helping them outline what they should be doing for this. Let me go grab my discussion that they want to talk about. Policies, technical training. Yep. And I'm gonna present this to them as you want to do this as a poem. So then it's not just talking. So some of you guys probably wonder, like, how do we get from talking about stuff in a project to actually like doing the work, right? And this is the thing, right? Like I tell you guys often, as engineers, we have to be able to outline the work. So this isn't, I wouldn't call this engineering. I'd call this maybe like security engineering. But I'm going through and I'm pulling out the individual things that we kind of need as like a checklist. And then I'm breaking them down into the individual steps that we're going to have to do. And then we'll start putting in, so RACI is very important. Like you might almost, if you've never used a RACI chart, it's very important, because have you guys ever been sitting in a meeting and there's like 20 people in the meeting and it's burning up a lot of companies' time, but they've got you all in there. And then they say, well, who wants to take this? And then everybody kind of stands like like penguins on the end of an iceberg, and nobody wants to say, yeah, it's me, nobody, whatever. Well, we need to leave meetings, and I know this sucks, man. I hate doing this too, but we have to leave meetings with people assigned to work. As an engineer, I actively try to avoid meetings. I don't know if you guys know that. I don't like being in meetings. I don't like being pulled away from, like, because I'm an engineer. The work that I do is I'm what we call an individual contributor. I get graded as an engineer on the stuff that I build and do, not the stuff that I sit in meetings and talk about. Well, it's very similar to this. We don't want people to sit around and just not be picked. I mean, there's talking about stuff and not assigning it to people is not a great way to run. But everybody loves to talk. People love to sip on their. I'm kind of guilty of this. I like sitting in meetings where I'm not doing anything, but I'm also probably typically working on other things while I'm in meetings. Because what I tell people all the time. This is tongue-in-cheek joking, but this is also 25 years of doing this. If you find your day filled with meetings, you're a manager. You became a manager. You weren't paying attention, and they slid you into a manager role. Hopefully, they're paying you more. But no, when you're like an engineer, like especially like as a team lead, because I'm always like a tech lead or a team lead on teams. I try to keep my junior engineers insulated from meetings. The meetings that I always tell people to go to, though, there's a few meetings I always tell people to go to if they're trying to learn, is like operational meetings. If you want to see the things that you're doing and building and how they're being used by the company and hear the problems and the pain points and stuff, those type of meetings are great. I'm particularly nosy, so when there's change management meetings of the teams, I like to go to those too, because I like to know what networking's doing and security's doing and these other people. So you're either yeah, fair enough. You might be an architect if that's the case. True. In this case, I'm very much more doing kind of like an architecture thing for them. And then this will be, let's say customer one. Let's say who's ever doing these are, my buddy. Because I will probably build the training plan, because I love building training plans. I do that for my company. I go out and train people. I build training plans for our group. Like, this is maybe something that I do better than other things. So get the training plan together. How often do we train you? Yeah, I'll get that in there. Where'd my little note? I had a little note sheet up. Hold on. We know all these. Let me see if I can find like a basic little checklist that somebody has, or even if one of these little I don't know if any of you guys play with AI, but like if AI will just show me kind of like what people are looking for. Yeah. So this will be good. So I just have over here on the side like a little AI thing that went and grabbed a bunch of these individual things. So I like this. I think that'll be a good little readiness thing. So I'm just pulling stuff over. Fisherman, you got here a little late, but we were talking. Actually, I was just talking about AWS a few seconds ago. So I have a friend of mine who actually I know a lot of people from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. If you guys don't know, I've been doing that for a long time. And one of my friends I met from these camps that like these Globetrotter camps that go all over the world, really. And I met him up in Maine, and then I got to be good friends with him. And now I go to his camps and we go down to Mexico and stuff like that. But he works for a company that does economics analysis for companies, but mostly they specialize in energy. And then they specialize in energy, in different parts of the U.S. specifically, but then also in Europe. And that's kind of what they do. And they go to these trade shows and stuff like that. And they are getting this company that my friend works for, and he's kind of like one of the initial he's not the founder, but he works directly with the founder. They taught economics together at a college out in California. And that friend of mine he's all but dissertation on his PhD, so he's almost done with his PhD, but he's been teaching for a long time and he's pretty good at it. but they need to get to SOC 2 compliance and then also ISO 27001 compliance. So I'm working with their guy who is, it's funny enough, another guy who I know from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu who's doing he actually works for them as like a project manager for their IT. So I'm going and I'm outlining the things that I think he needs to do as a POAM. So for people that have not dealt with POAMs, right? They are your, I said, do I mean poems? No, POAMs are the way that we look at the things that need to get done, right? It's the plan of action and milestones. So plan of action and milestones. And what I'm doing then is I'm writing out tasks here on the left of things that I know we need to do, right? Tasks for SOC 2, tasks for ISO 27001 when I get to that part. And then we're doing a RACI, which is your responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed thing. And then our scheduled completion of when we think we need to have these things done by to be ready for next year. And then what the actual completion of those things are. And this is just like a high level one. And then over here, writing the things that we need to do to get these things done. So the high level task on the left, the down in the weeds type stuff that we're outlining on the right. So Fisherman asked what we're working on. That's what we're working on. Yeah, I always think plan of actions and milestones. That's what it is. Plan of actions. I don't know why I can never. In my head, it always flips on that first letter, and I get it wrong. I know it's milestones at the end, but I always think that. Trafficking meetings are not for performance; it's just not part of the actual job. Yeah. And if you're an individual contributor, guys, at the end of the year, the only thing they're going to look at is how well did you adhere to whatever your a lot of times with engineers, we'll have the company standards, we'll have so the company goals, we'll have the team goals, and then we'll have your individual goals. And a lot of times we'll codify them down early in the year, and then you'll be graded on those. You'll be graded against the level to which you adhered to those things. And actually, I've seen people shoot themselves in the foot because they're like, I'm going to get 17 certifications this next year. And that sounds wonderful until you realize that's like 1.5 a month, right? And you have to really be hammering to do that. And that's, I've only known like maybe a few people to get that many certs in a year. And they were all like teenagers doing it in high school or whatever. So, yeah, completely sick of POAMs, right? In fact, I don't even want to be doing this, but I mean, it's It's not that I don't want to be doing it. I'm just it's not necessarily in my wheelhouse. But I do security stuff. I understand the security stuff. All the implementation of this stuff is the stuff that I do. I'm the guy who makes the stuff actually happen in the systems typically. But do I sit in enough meetings to understand how to do a POAM? Yeah. Right. I sit in a lot of meetings. So this is like I'm actually kind of building this from memory, but it's exactly the way that I kind of think of this. And then for me, this will be Scott because I'm Scott. Scott will be consulted on all things. Scott will not do all things, but Scott will be consulted on all things, right? And then, maybe on this one, the customer is the name of the guy who I'm going to be working with. And then vendor will be whatever third-party vendor they end up doing. And this will be Scott and customer. Whoops. Right. Then there we go. Get them all to fit. Good. All right. So anyways, that's what we're doing. We're not working super hard either. Fisherman, you also missed a little bit of, we were doing, not that you probably missed it, but we were doing this. We were looking at like the lab guide for how people are going to access the labs for the automation course, which by the way, guys, the course is kicked off on Saturday. So they're free. They're down in our Discord. You have access to them here. You can drop your public keys, only public keys, not your private keys. And then there's a discussion post where you can go and start to do your discussions if you want to be involved in the course. If you get to the end of the course and you've done all the work, but you haven't been doing the discussions, you haven't been doing the course. And like, that's the best way I can put it. It's you have to look at how other people answer these questions and work through these things, and then you have to talk to them about it. You can guys. One of my favorite things about academics, right, and being like learning things academically is there is place to take the white glove off and smack the other guy in the face and not agree with him. But we can do that without having to go to the pistols, which is the next thing after the white gloves typically, right? You smack somebody, as Charlie Murphy used to say, somebody has to go. Somebody has to leave this planet, right? But that's not the best way. But in academics, we have a way to argue, and we have a way to debate ideas and stuff like that. That's what academics is. You should be able to present your ideas. You should be able to cite authority if you need to, and people can reject that authority or accept it. And then you should be able to take other people's ideas and take them apart. That's how debate works. I actually was thinking about this. If I didn't have so many damn things going on, and if I didn't already commit to this course, and then also working on the dissertation for my doctorate and all those things, if I wasn't doing all those things, I would absolutely start up like a debate club for us. Like we've talked a lot about Toastmasters and getting people practicing talking in front of people. But I really think people would benefit from debate, because people think debate is like me standing here and you standing there, and you're just saying stuff and I'm saying stuff, and then people agree with us or disagree. That's not how debate works. Debate is I get 5 or 6 minutes to present my ideas. You get 5 or 6 minutes to present yours. I typically know what your ideas are going to be, and you typically know what my ideas are going to be. And then we spend 3 to 4 minutes, each of us, taking apart the other person's ideas for their merits. We're not like, well, fuck you, you're fat. What do you know about stuff? That's not an academic way to react to things, right? Right? Because most academics are fat, anyways. But my point is that's not debate, right? So where I'm going with that is, these aren't even designed to be debate. These are just places for you to go. But if you want to argue with somebody, if you want to say, Zorgal, I don't agree that time, logical state, or analog threshold determines a trigger. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with analog being any part of that. And then you argue with them. But you argue with them on the merits of, you go, well, analog's a great thing, but analog is always a continuum. I need discrete steps. So while an analog may cross a threshold, it also may not. I prefer binary on and off with like a digital, I prefer that. I don't like analog for thresholds. And then you explain why. And maybe you even draw some graphs, and they can accept it or not, but this is how ideas work, right? So my point in saying that is, we do this not to like sit around and find out who we like or dislike because they agree with us. Some of the people you're going to like the most are the people that argue with you. And we don't get a lot of arguments, but the point is, some people say, I disagree with that. You can disagree with me. Did you guys know you could disagree with me on here? I get disagreed with all the time. Mostly on stuff that I'm fucking around with. But I'm saying, like, when you're talking academically, you should be able to defend your ideas against the simple onslaught of I disagree, right? I mean, anyway, so yeah, all of these things, fallacies, ad hominems, appealing to authority. Appealing to authority is a logical fallacy, but appealing to authority and then showing the strengths of what they're doing. I forgot I tied in that objection thing. Jeez. It just yelled at me, and I was like, whoa, what the hell was that? Yeah, so if you guys don't know, there's a bunch of commands that'll object or not to things that we're talking about. But yeah, you should be able to object to things that people are saying, especially academically. And then now people are working on some of these things. What is security? This is for the security engineering course. And then you're writing up things about it. And then you're writing up maybe acronyms and some of the other things that are going. Anyway, so the courses are going, and I think that, I think a lot of people have made pretty good friends working with other people and finding out who kind of is on the same cadence as you, who you can, message and talk to and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, let's go with, I need to look at, where was that over here? I need to look at, the ISO 27001 standard, because I've never looked at this standard. So, there's got to be a context and risk assessment, which is always good. Risk analysis is something that I think I excel in, or do at least well. So, initiation and planning, right? Initiation and planning. We need context and risk assessment. And this is like, do we use... So over here, right? I can also, I think, set this to always be at the top. I think there's a way to make that always be at the top. It's funny, my brother Tom uses this tool way more than me. Let's not worry about that. But context and risk assessment, we can sometimes use NIST risk framework, And I think that's the 145. Or is that the one that was just mentioned, the 57 RMF, Risk Management Framework? Which one is this? Oh, 53. Yeah, it's 53. 57 is key controls, right? And how you rotate keys in an environment. So let's go with, let's just link this here. Oh wow, my fucking thing has completely disappeared. All right, contest and risk assessment. Okay. So we'll put that, and then so we get to do all of this. So we get a framework development, we get implementation and operation, so how we deploy it, performance evaluation, and then one of my favorite topics, and you guys have heard me talk on this a lot, is continual improvement. You got to have continual improvement in there. Most of you guys have run into me doing a lot with, I'm always talking about total quality management and Six Sigma, because those are things that I learned early on as being valuable. And I think that they're like easier entries for people that want to get into engineering than going like the technical route. Like if you want to get in at an engineering company, but you don't necessarily want to be doing technical engineering things and math and stuff, I would say that like Six Sigma is more like math and statistics light for people, but it's more about the templates and the overlays and that kind of stuff. So anyways, let's go with, what is this? ISMS. Okay. All right, so we'll define what's in and out of scope, and then we'll do some risk assessment and treatment, security processes, implement operations, controls, those kind of things, and then monitoring. So I'm a big fan of monitoring. Most of you guys know I do a lot with monitoring in our environment, right? We got monitors we can pull up at any time, right? Bunch of well, I guess if my dashboard's logged in, if I'm logged in, there's a bunch of stuff that we can see in the environment, right? And do I have this like really small? What's going on here? All right. How are our lab servers doing? Yeah, lab servers look good. I do need to boot some of these guys. They're coming up on longer up times. So we'll get some of these done in the next maintenance window, right? We do our maintenance windows on Sunday nights typically. So, all right. This one's going to have and engage the auditor. So down here we'll have, somewhere down here, engage third party auditor. Right. And then the different things that we're going to be doing inside of all that. So, all right. That's just, I wanted to outline that today. So this is kind of like my framed outline. I put it in dark mode so it wouldn't blow everybody's eyes up. But then we'll also turn that off, and we will. Yeah, we'll just save it here. All right. So what else are we doing then tonight? So we kind of set that stuff up. That's what's in the title. That's what we were officially working on tonight. Let's see what other things we might want to work on. We've got the Discord. People are dropping again more chats in there. Those are things that are available for you. You guys are always welcome to join. I think we just hit 4,200 people earlier today, and the bot will welcome you in. The bot's not always nice to you, but that's kind of a thing to think about or know about. There's always events. I tell people this because like it's weird. A lot of people use Discord, but not a lot of people know that Discord has events. So we've got events that are always coming up. So expect here soon for people to start. The guys that have been around will start to make like study groups typically, and then you can go in there and you can work through projects with them and problems that you're having and all that kind of stuff. But there's Bash study group coming up. That is specific to Bash. That's not actually the course, but sometimes you can ask people to stick around, or you can ask people to jump down in another channel with you. They'll probably help you out. I know some of the guys are pretty good about that. There's round 2 of security engineering course. This will be unit 2 this week. So So we did Unit 1. It's also recorded. It's also, if you're ever lost, there's a section right here called Beginner Start Here. It's got all the stuff. Here's the 10-week security engineering course right here. Here's the course books. Boom. You got the book. The book shows you exactly where everything is. It shows you where the recordings are. The book's got everything you need, right? Anyways, all that to say, come up here. There's also the 16-week automation course. We just did Unit 1. Lab was real light. There wasn't really much to do. I'm publishing the lab today, so the guys will get that in the book. And then the lab sheet isn't really, there's not really anything to do in the lab. Like, you don't have anything to turn it. There's a worksheet that you have a little bit of stuff to work through, but that's not that big a deal. Then there's a late night bash study, which I know for some of you on the other side of the planet, that's early morning, but you guys can work that out and figure that out. There's a writer's room at 6 p.m. on Sundays. That is for the guys that are publishing and working on the books. They're always kind of in there moving their own stuff around in GitHub. And I think that's an excellent way to get connected if you just want to meet other people that are kind of active in the group, right? That kind of stuff. And that, I don't run that. The guys run that. The guys built the books. They did all that stuff themselves. It's a pretty cool little project they have. We do lab maintenance on Sunday nights. You guys can hang out with me down in the Discord, and I do that kind of stuff.
I can answer that for money.
Johnny Man, you said that's cool. Is there an instructor for the classes or more independent? I talk every Saturday. Yeah, I meet with the guys. There's actually me. Yeah, I'm in there meeting with everybody, Johnny Man. Yeah, we go down. We hop in one of these channels down here. And yeah, I talk, but then there's also a recording of all those ones too. So yeah, no, it's you're hanging out with me, and then when we're done, I jump up into the typically we go from here into like the Linux chat, and then you guys can sit and talk, and then as much as I have time, because I've already blown on Saturdays, I'll already have blown 2 hours on those. So then as much time as I have before the wife comes around and grabs me or makes me do other stuff, right? That's kind of that. All right. Yeah, so that's stuff up in Discord. Discord's free. I think it's a great little tool. Hopefully they don't like start charging us one day or something, but we break our Discord all the time. We'll do events and we'll have too many people in there. And it doesn't say there's 200. It tells us we can have 500 in there with no problem. But we'll get up around 100 and it'll just start really killing the bandwidth or whatever. So it's funny. It's probably because we're down on some smaller set of servers because we're not paying for anything. You know, we're not like a super boosted server or anything, so we just kind of hang out down there. Do they have ads now, Robodom? Yeah, I see a little thing pop up every now and then in Discord, but I ignore it. It's always like gaming stuff because apparently they have me pegged for playing a lot of video games or something, which is funny because I do play a fair amount of video games, but it's mostly just because I have them open while I'm doing other stuff. So like, yeah, it's quests. That's what they call them. Yeah, they call them quests. It's kind of a hassle. Bunch of jerks. All right. So we could keep working on that SOC stuff and that ISO stuff and keep building out that POAM. Oh, you know, I do need to, as a generic thing, I needed to write this up from earlier. Policy. Let's add in another row, and this is just generically speaking, centralize, build, or configure central for all company policies and procedures. Right? This needs to be. Let's also go here. Set this to wrap. Where's wrap at? Format cells. Word wrap. Should be, is it alignment? Wrap text. There we go. Boom. Yeah. So their company needs to have a central, and that's going to be customer. And then schedule completion should be, I would say they need to have that done by like, what's the second week of October? I would say that they need to have this done by the 10th of October. 10. Right? And then actual completion, then this is Confluence. Not Jira. What's some other ones? You could use Confluence, you could use Archer. You could use what other internal. I guess you could go with something like ServiceNow. I've seen Confluence have some good ones, but any type of centralized documentation repository. And I would tell them that they need to, hold on, these all need to wrap. These all need to wrap. Okay. What's this thing doing here? That's fine, whatever. Is that not wrapping text? That's annoying. Get over there. Okay. Yeah. Any kind of centralized documentation repository needs to be something created. I don't know, and I don't know what they have. I'm gonna talk to them tomorrow and see what they have. Yeah, Robodom, that pop-up's super annoying. I agree, 100%. Super annoying in there. Acceptable use policy. Use policy. Yeah, we need to have that. I could keep picking at this, but I think in general, I've got the outline, and then I'll just keep noodling on it in the morning before I get to any other stuff. We can also move these in just a little bit because these don't need so much space. Yeah. Look at all this. That'll just be general. Oh shoot. There you go. ISO. Alright. So we got our projects and then our tasks and whatever. Yeah, it's coming along. It's moving along nicely. So there's that. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, you know what? I always have these ideas, and then I think I definitely don't want to bring it up now because again, I'm not going to be able to do anything probably until early next year for any new stuff. But I was going to ask some of the guys, or people that are part of the ProLug, if anybody's interested in like digital signal stuff, because I could put together. So, you know, we're a professional Linux users group, but we do technology in general. But I am also like I specialize in like network communications and like system communications and stuff like that, and that's what I teach, and that's a big part of this. But I'm wondering if people would be interested in like the low level, how these systems communicate, how digital signals, analog signals work. We would, if we did something like that, we would actually get out the signal analyzers and actually build the stuff. But I don't want to do that. I mean, obviously I'm focusing on the automation course right now. We've been talking about for a long time. We got to get that done. But then probably in the future we'll work on some of that other stuff as well. So I think that would be good. Digital signal stuff, unstable. Yeah, I think that stuff's really attainable nowadays too. Like when I was in college, like I went to DeVry and we had all the oscilloscopes up and all the digital signal analyzers up, and we had to build our own little modems and stuff. But we had that all. We would just sit there in the classroom and actually work on that. But no, I mean, I even tell, like, I have a college student, like a group of students going through the class right now. One of my classes that's very much on that topic, and I tell them, I'm like, a lot of this stuff is really just for you to know now. And if you ever set one of these up, you'll bust out these tools and use them. But for the most part, this is not something that is common to be done unless you're either like in an antenna engineering role, maybe you're deploying wireless for companies, you know, you're doing like wireless deployments around job sites or something like that. That could be a thing. You're maybe doing some architecture stuff, and you need to know like the standards and stuff for how long distances are, and then go out and test them. What we call wireless site surveys. One of the only limitations really for us doing any of that stuff in general is being able to get people the equipment, right? Like that stuff's not hard to do. It's not hard to practice. You just have to get the equipment and do it. And that's hard to do over long distances. But the signal, like the base signal stuff, super easy to do, right? We can just talk about that anytime. So yeah, we might do that, Robodom. That's something I was thinking about earlier, like put together something, because I know a lot of the guys are involved with ham radio. I used to be pretty involved with it when I was younger, especially in college. Back in the day, I tell people like we used to have Radio Shacks, right? You just used to go buy electronic parts right on the. Now you can still order them pretty quickly on Amazon and stuff, but it's not the same as going in there and actually getting the parts, right? Getting everything and doing all that. So good times, but okay. What are we hitting? We're hitting 2 hours, man. That's getting kind of long in the tooth for one of my projects if I'm not really doing anything too crazy. So here's my plan. I'm gonna get that stuff pushed up for the guys for the automation course, so then you guys will be able to, they're going to work it into the book, and then we'll get that published for people, and then that book will always kind of be moving forward with the course. We do have those labs done. We do have the worksheets published. Yeah, so the automation course is pretty well set and rolling. I'm going to be working on a lot more stuff this week, so I'm more ready for Saturday. And there's going to be a lot more like hands-on doing the individual stuff and actually changing your environment for each of these. So hopefully it I don't want to say like inspires you, but hopefully the stuff like motivates you to do things with your automation that makes your administrative and security type roles and your build type roles work better for you. So all right, well, let's just call it here then. I'm gonna go ahead and drop, and I will see some of you guys later on this week. I'm always down in the Discord. I'm probably going to be hanging out watching some TV or something up here. I say TV, but I'm just watching on my computer. And yeah, if any of you guys need anything, just let me know down in the Discord, all right?